Hello everyone. From today we will start a series in which we will discuss the questions related to the various environmental laws and acts. We know that it has become a trend for the UPSC in the prelims asking the question from the various environmental laws, various environmental rules, and we have witnessed in the prelims of 2018, 19 and 20. By keeping that thing in our view, we are going to start this series, and today we will cover Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Let's start. So, what is the driving force, or what is the soul or reason behind all these environmental acts and laws or the rules? So, we will try to uncover this mystery. Constitutional provision. As we know, the Article 48A, it's mean directive principle of state policy. We know that this directive principle of state policy directs the government, give a vision to the government to work for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the environment. So, in a similar way, Article 48A of the Constitution of India directs the state to protect and improve the environment, safeguard the wildlife and the forest. And this article was added in the Constitution 42nd Amendment 1976. So this bit of information not only important from the prelims point of view, we can start our answer, we can enrich our answer by writing these articles in the mains answers also. So the Article 48A, the soul behind these various environmental laws is that we have to improve and protect our environment and safeguard the wildlife and the forest. Article 51A, basically it is a fundamental duty of the people of India. One of them is to protect and improve the natural environment including forest, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and having a compassion for the living creatures. So this one particular fundamental duty and this directive principle of state policy, Article 48A, is the driving force, is the soul, is the reason behind bringing all these environmental laws. Okay, so this bit of information is necessary for the prelims also and the means also. Now we will go into the detail of this particular act. The act provides for the formation of Wildlife Advisory Board, okay, Wildlife Warden, and specify the power and the duties of their. Okay, so formation of Wildlife Advisory Board and Wildlife Warden. According to the Environmental Protection Act 1972, it helped India to become a party of CITES. The full form of CITES is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna. CITES is a multilateral treaty. Its objective is protect endangered animals and plants. It is also known as Washington Convention, and it was adopted as a result of a meeting of IUCN members. Okay, so it was the Environmental Protection Act 1972, Wildlife Protection, sorry. So Wildlife Protection Act 1972, according to which we became the member of the CITES. For the first time, a comprehensive list of endangered wildlife was prepared at a country level. A comprehensive list, endangered wildlife of country. Act prohibited hunting of endangered species. Okay, it put a ban that you cannot hunt the species which are endangered. It scheduled the animal, prohibited from being traded. It created a list that these are the scheduled animal and here the trade cannot happen. The act provides for license for sale, transfer and possession of some wildlife species. If you want to sell or transfer, you want to have some wildlife animal with you, then there must be a license. A regulation system was created. It provides for the establishment of wildlife sanctuaries and natural park. So, wildlife sanctuary and the national park, all these comes under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The provision paved the way for the formation of Central Zoo Authority. It is central body responsible for oversight zoos in India. It was established in 1992. So basically from this particular page we find Wildlife Advisory, Wildlife Warden cites, which is known as Washington Convention, prohibited the hunting of endangered species, establishment of wildlife sanctuary and the national park, central zoo authority, and license for the sale, transfer, and possession of wildlife species. So this is a bit of information we get from this particular page. Next, move ahead. Yes, the act created 6 schedules. 6 schedules were created, and each schedule gave a different degree of protection to a class of flora and fauna. Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, it's mean absolute protection, and there will be offense. If there is offense, then it will attract a maximum penalty. If you harm the animals or the plants which are in the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, the part 2 of that Schedule 2, then you will attract a maximum penalty for that. The schedule also include the hunting also, that the animals, the flora, fauna which are in this particular schedule, you cannot hunt them. National Board for Wildlife, which is a statutory body under the act of this provision. It's mean the National Board for Wildlife was created under this particular act. This is a advisory board. National Board for Wildlife is an advisory board, and it give advice to the central government on the issues of wildlife conservation. It is the apex body. It's a review and it's approve all the matters which are related to the wildlife, to the national park, and to the sanctuary. Basically, advisory body. And the importance of this statutory body is that the Prime Minister in itself chair this National Board for Wildlife. The chief function of the board promote conservation and developmental efforts for the wildlife and the forest. So from this particular page, what we get? Basically, there are 6 schedules, and another is National Board for Wildlife, which is headed by the Prime Minister in itself. The next is Act provided for the establishment of National Tiger Conservation Authority. It is a statutory body. It is under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and it has a supervisory function. And it has given the capacity to perform various acts for the protection of the tigers in India, strengthen the tiger conservation. This is statutory body running a Project Tiger, which was started in 1973. We have to guarantee the revival of the endangered tiger. So this particular act, Wildlife Protection Act, is father of so many statutory bodies, whether it is a National Tiger Conservation Authority, whether it is a National Board for Wildlife, Central Zoo Authority. Okay. Next is a protected area under the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay. So under this act, we find there are basically 5 type of protected areas. Okay. The one is sanctuary. The first one is sanctuary. Sanctuary is a place where endangered and abused wildlife allowed to live in peace. They can live in peace in their natural environment, and there will be no human intervention. They are naturally occurring areas where endangered species are protected from the poaching, hunting, predation. Animals are not bred for the commercial exploitation. The species are protected from any kind of disturbance, and animals are not allowed to captured or killed inside the sanctuary. So this is a protected area, and this protected area comes under the Wildlife Protection Act. Next, a wildlife sanctuary is declared by the state government by a notification, and boundaries can be changed. Boundaries can be altered by a resolution of the state legislature. It means boundaries can be changed. Human activities like the timber harvesting, human activities are permitted, like timber harvesting, collecting minor forest produce, private ownership rights are permitted as long as they do not interfere with the animal's well-being. They are open to the general public. It means there are not so many restrictions. People are not allowed to. There are restrictions as who can reside within the limit of a sanctuary. Only the public servants and their family and person who have their immovable property inside the sanctuary, they can live there. People using the highway can pass through the sanctuary. They are allowed inside. Boundaries of a sanctuary generally not fixed. So we have done, there are totally 5 kinds of protected area. One of them is sanctuary, and in sanctuary there are not so many restrictions. Okay, there can be they are notified by the state government. Boundaries can be changed by the state legislature. Usually the boundaries are not fixed and they are not defined. People can own their immovable property inside the sanctuary. They are open to the general public and human activities are allowed. So we are done with this, and even the biologists and the researchers, they are permitted inside, that they can go there and they study, and even they can study about the inhabitants who are living in that. The chief wildlife warden has the authority to control, manage and maintain all the sanctuaries, may grant permission to the person for entry or the residence in the sanctuary for the study of wildlife, scientific research, photography, transaction of any lawful business with the person living inside, and tourism is also allowed. It's mean the main regulator inside a wildlife sanctuary is a chief wildlife warden. Sanctuaries can be upgraded to the national park. Their status can be upgraded to the national park. Examples like Indian Wildlife Sanctuary in a run of Kutch, that is in Gujarat, and many another wildlife sanctuaries are also there in India. Now we next move the national park. National park is also a protected area, but here permission of human interference is very less. National park, the areas, they are set by the government to conserve the natural environment. National park has more restrictions as compared to the wildlife sanctuary. National park can be declared by the state government. Remember this. We think so if it is a national park, it will be declared by a central government. No. National park can be declared by the state government by a notification. No alteration of the boundaries of a national park except a resolution passed by the state legislature. It means if you want to increase, you want to change the boundaries of a national park, then there should be a resolution which should be passed by the state legislature. The main objective of a national park: protect the natural environment and biodiversity. The landscape, flora and fauna present in their natural state in the national park. Boundaries are fixed and they are very well defined, and no human activity is allowed. So in this case, the national parks are totally different from the sanctuaries, because in sanctuary there are no fixed boundaries and human interference is allowed, but here the human activities are not allowed. Next move, grazing of livestock and private rights are not permitted. It means the private ownership is not allowed, it is not permitted, and livestock, the grazing is not also allowed. Species mentioned in the schedule of the Wildlife Act are not allowed to be hunted and to be the captured. No person shall destroy, remove, exploit any wildlife from a national park or destroy their habitat of any wild animal, deprive any wild animal in its habitat in the national park. They cannot be downgraded to a sanctuary. If a national park is declared once, it will be a national park, but it will not be downgraded to a sanctuary. Because the main difference between a sanctuary and a national park, that the degree of conservation is very high in a national park. So there are various national parks in India, like Bandipur National Park in Karnataka. Next, the third kind of protected area is conservation reserve. State government may declare an area, particularly which are around the national park and the sanctuary, as a conservation reserve by consulting the local communities. Community reserve. This is the fourth kind of protected area. State government may declare any private land or community land as a community reserve after consultation with the local community or an individual who has volunteered to conserve the wildlife. The fifth kind of protected area is there are the tiger reserves for the protection and the conservation of the tigers in India, and they are declared on the recommendation of the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which is a statutory body. Okay, the next is the amended Wildlife Act does not allow any commercial exploitation of the forest produce. It's mean I'm sorry. It's mean that we have done with the 5 kind of protected area, and the main theme of all these protected area that there should not be any kind of commercial exploitation of the forest produce in both wildlife sanctuaries or a national park or and the local communities are allowed. When we talk about the community reserve, conservation reserve, the local communities are allowed there, but they are only allowed to the extent that they fulfill their requirement, daily basis environment, the bona fide requirements, not for the commercial exploitation. There are six schedule in the Wildlife Protection Act. So we are done with the five kind of protected area which come under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. We are done with the kind of statutory bodies which comes under the Wildlife Protection Act. Now we will cover the different kinds of schedule, the sixth schedule which come under this particular act. The schedule 1, it covers endangered species, the species which need rigorous protection, and so there are the harsh penalties who violate these laws. Species under this schedule, they are prohibited that they cannot be hunted throughout the India if there is no threat to the human life. If a particular species, a particular wildlife is responsible for the threat to the human life, then other steps can be taken. But if that situation condition is not there, you cannot hunt a wildlife which comes under a schedule 1. Absolute protection is given. Okay, and trade of these animal is prohibited. For example, the species which come under the schedule 1 are the tiger, black buck, blue whale, common dolphin, Himalayan brown bear, and etc. Schedule 2, they are also given high protection. Trade is prohibited, but they attract less amount of punishment when we compare to the schedule 1. They cannot be hunted except they are threat to the human life, and they are the Kohinoor, which is insect, Assamese macaque, Bengal Hanuman langur, large Indian civet, Indian fox, and etc. Schedule 3 and 4. In this list we find those species which are not endangered. These include protected species, but penalty for their violation is very less when we compare to the first two schedules. And here we will find hyena, Himalayan rat, flying fox, Malabar tree toad, etc. Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. Schedule 5 contain the animals which can be hunted, and the animals which can be hunted also known as vermin, vermin, vermin. It's mean we can hunt them, like the mice, rat, common crow, because what they do, they are the reason behind the crop losses many times. They are the reason behind different kind of losses caused to the human beings. And there is a Schedule 6. In Schedule 6, there are a list of the plants which you are not allowed to cultivate. And if you cultivate, then you need a kind of license. Okay, for example, you cannot grow opium plants, but there are in many medicines where opium is used, and for that medicine opium is produced, but for that we need a license. And from this particular section a question is asked in the UPSC CSE prelims 2020. Yes, so I think we are done with we are done with all the important things about the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. I hope it's clear to you. Please revise it well before your prelims. So this is our Wildlife Protection Act. Next time we will cover the another act of the environment. Till then, bye bye. Have a good time.